Well, my name is Henry Huisman. My nickname is Hank. I go by Hank, and I'm currently just basically supplying parts for the McLarens. I do car restorations. Well, my dad was a mechanic, and he was always buying cars, fixing them up, and selling them. So I kind of learned from him. I was always around cars, and I grew up in the suburbs of Detroit, so that was like the Motor City. So we always had different cars, and always interested in cars. And ASC American Sunroof Company, the company started back in the 60s. They were doing electric sunroofs. Mercury Cougars was the first program they had with Ford. They did 500 cars, and that's what got them started. They were just a little garage shop, before that. Gradually evolved into a big empire worth $500 million at one point with 2,000 employees. They had plants all over the country, putting in sunroofs. They got into convertible tops. They're doing retractable hardtops, fixed glass roofs, T-tops. They had their hands in everything. ASC was already an established company, and McLaren was actually an established company. This is the McLaren Racing from England. Bruce McLaren, legendary race car guy. McLaren Engines was establishing a brand, a U.S. market. They wanted to do development work here. And the plan was to do performance enhancements on these McLarens. That was actually in their sights. That's why they took on the McLaren name. They gave it more of a racing feel, an automotive, a historical touch to the car. Get a little, interest, as a performance vehicle. So ASC bought McLaren Engines, which was actually in the same town, Livonia, Michigan. They were planning on doing development work. They did do some with the GNX program, which ASC was part of. But for some reason, they never did any of the performance stuff on the Mustangs. They claimed it had to do with the warranty issues and, emission standards, all these factors they had to weigh in. So it never really took off with the Mustang program, but they did use it for some other, with the Buick program. So that's where the name came from. That's how they got their start, putting in electric sunroofs that were made in Germany, called the Golde sunroofs, they called them. So he brought that to the U.S. market, made the company from the sunroof end of it. That was his start. I bought a Cougar, 68 Cougar with one of these factory sunroofs in it, so I was always intrigued about the sunroof. So that's how I kind of got involved with the ASC program. I had worked at a trim shop right out of high school. I was learning, upholstery and headliners and final tops, that sort of stuff. And then I was redoing my own sunroof, my own car, putting a final top on it and a headliner. And then I needed some parts for the sunroof, the cables. So I went to ASC and explained it to them, and they said they had them. And they came out to look at the car, and then they asked me about the top, that I'd put a new top on and the headliner in it. So they were kind of impressed that I was doing all that stuff. They literally asked me if I wanted a job there. So I said, okay, why not? It's closer to my house, and they offered me a lot more money, so I started working there. It was at the Wixom Ford plant. ASC had set a pilot plant next to the factory, so they'd take the cars from the Ford factory. They were Lincolns and T-Birds at the time. They'd bring it to the ASC plant right down the street. They would put the sunroofs in there and send them back to the plant, and then they'd send them all over the country. So everybody thinking they're getting a factory installed sunroof, they were actually getting this drop ship through program, getting their roofs installed. I ended up working there through most of the 70s, but towards like 77, 78, they wanted to do the sunroofs in-house right at the factory. So ASC kept supplying the parts to ASC, but they were being installed at the factory. So that kind of made the plant shut down where they were doing it offline. Kind of where I went on my own after that. After the plant shut down, I opened my own little shop, going to all the dealerships, installing sunroofs for them, taking a car off their stock, putting a sunroof in. They could bring it back and sell to the customer with a sunroof. So instead of waiting, to order one through the factory, it would take 2 or 3 weeks. They could send it to me and get it back in 2 days. Kept doing that business, and I was still in contact with ASC because I was buying parts from them for the sunroofs, and got to talk and establish with them, and they were throwing a lot of these parts away for the cars that they didn't need. So when I kind of said, hey, I'll take that stuff, and I was getting their takeoff parts. You know, like for the convertibles, they wouldn't need the hatchback, they wouldn't need the quarter windows, they wouldn't need the back seat, you know. In the console, I would take all that stuff, and, you know, little bit, I was just selling it off. Every now and then they'd have cars that they were done with, they were using for development or executive cars or whatever. And then they'd offer them to me, and, you know, I'd usually get a pretty good deal on it, turn around and sell them, or some of them I kept, you know, some of the interesting ones. And then eventually quit building the cars. I mean, they were selling pretty good, and then the economy was slowing down, cars weren't selling like they used to be. Phasing out, you know, they weren't going to build the cars anymore after 1990. They only sold 65 cars that year, and they were used to selling 1,000 cars, you know. So they were pretty much putting an end to that McLaren build. So they kind of offered me the rest of the parts, and then if anybody called them wanting parts, they'd just say, give them my number, say, hey, call Hank, he'll take care of you. And it just kind of took off from there. So I just pretty much became the continuation of servicing and supplying parts for these McLarens. And since I had quite a bit, you know, on hand, you know, I had a good start. And as I ran out of some stuff, I would still have it built, you know, still have it made, because I had a lot of the toolings and a lot of the suppliers and contacts. So just kind of keeping it going, keep the cars on the road, keep them alive, and keep the hobby going. Yeah, after '86, the Capri was gone, so they went to Ford and said, we can do this on a Mustang. It's, you know, basically the same body, obviously. So it kind of evolved from there. Well, Shannon called me. Yeah, yeah, exactly. He called me way back in the day, 25 years ago probably, something like that. Wanting parts for this thing. So I hooked him up with, you know, ground effects, wheels, whatever he needed. We kept a relationship after that. And I'd see him at the racetracks there in Oklahoma. We always seem to meet up there. We've been in contact for quite a while. Been friends for a long time. Shannon called me a couple years ago telling me that he had this project in mind, that the same McLaren that he's been buying parts for the years that have changed hands back and forth and ended up in his uncle's hands. He wanted to surprise his uncle and restore this car. He needed parts, obviously, so I assured him I had just about anything he'd need for it. So I gradually, you know, I just sent him parts, you know, the new stuff I had, some used stuff I had, you know, something like bumper covers even, and side moldings. And then he just kept me in progress, you know, in touch with the progress of how this car was coming along, sent pictures now and then. He seemed real excited about it, and decided, you know, he was going to make this his little showcase for the business, and then, you know, obviously surprise his uncle when it was all done, and get a lot of publicity over it. And, you know, I thought that was a great idea, and, you know, and he invited me to come out and for the unveiling. You know, took his invitation. I was excited to come out here. I was glad he invited me, and, you know, glad I'm part of the program. He seems real passionate about it, real excited about it, and he's done an incredible job. Amazing build, you know, restoration. It's just way beyond anything anybody could have expected. Way beyond normal restoration. He's taking it to a whole different level.
That's the quote unquote, is that the holy grail of?
Well, I would say so. I mean, there's not going to be any nicer one out there. He's gone all out. He's gone, you know, way above. Unbelievable what he's done here.